Welcome back. You are listening to the home of forbidden romances. Prepare yourself, because tonight's story will leave you breathless. The blade of the paring knife flashed under the sterile kitchen lights, hovering inches from my jugular, but the voice screaming in my head didn't belong to me. It belonged to the man holding the knife, the man who was calmly peeling an apple while his mind roared. Asterisk, I should carve my name into his skin so the world knows he belongs to the Volmonts. Asterisk. Julian dropped his coffee mug. Ceramic shattered against the hardwood floor, sending shards of porcelain and dark liquid skittering across the immaculate luxury apartment. The noise was a gunshot in the silence of the morning, but it was nothing compared to the deafening cacophony of Kalen Volmont's internal monologue. Kalen didn't flinch. He didn't jump. He simply stopped the knife's motion against the apple skin, his gray eyes sliding over to Julian with the predatory grace of a snow leopard spotting a wounded hare. You're clumsy today, Julian, Kalen said aloud. His spoken voice was a rich, polished baritone, devoid of any emotion, cool as the marble countertop he leaned against. But the voice in Julian's head, the echo that had started 3 days ago after the strange electrical surge in the university engineering lab, was guttural, desperate, and terrifyingly heated. Asterisk, look at him. Trembling like a leaf. I want to pin him against the glass. I want to taste the fear off his pulse. Why does he have to look so beautiful when he's terrified? Asterisk. Julian scrambled back, his hands shaking as he reached for a towel, trying to clean up the mess to distract himself from the violation of privacy occurring in his own skull. I didn't sleep well, Julian stammered, avoiding Kalen's gaze. Sorry. I'll clean it up. Leave it, Kalen commanded. He set the knife down. The click of metal on stone echoed. He stepped around the island, his movements fluid. I'll ruin my knees on this glass just to get closer to him, Kalen's mind whispered, a stark contrast to his pristine, tailored suit. Asterisk, if I help him, I can touch his hand. Just for a second. That should be enough to starve off the hunger for an hour. Asterisk. Julian froze as Kalen knelt beside him. The heir to the Volmont conglomerate, the untouchable icy prince of St. Jude's University, was kneeling in coffee spills just to pick up a ceramic shard. Their fingers brushed. A jolt, like static electricity but hotter, shot up Julian's arm. Mine, the voice in Julian's head growled, loud and possessive, drowning out the ambient hum of the refrigerator. Asterisk mine. 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 God, why can't I just lock the door and keep him here forever? Asterisk. Julian jerked his hand back, gasping. I have to go to class. He scrambled up, abandoning the mess, and bolted for the door. He didn't look back, but he could hear Kalen's thoughts chasing him down the hallway, echoing through the heavy oak door even as he fled. Asterisk. Run, little rabbit. You always come back to the burrow eventually. Asterisk. The architecture of St. Jude's was Gothic and imposing, designed to remind scholarship students like Julian that they were guests in the halls of gods. Julian sat in the back of the lecture hall, his head pounding. He had worn noise-canceling headphones, but they did nothing to dampen the telepathic intrusion. It had been 72 hours since the accident. Julian, a physics major, and Kalen, a business administration prodigy who dabbled in everything, had been paired for a generic science elective lab. There had been a shortage in the prototype capacitator. A flash of blue light. Both had been knocked unconscious. When Julian woke up in the infirmary, Kalen was sitting in the chair next to him, reading a book. Julian had asked, "Are you okay?" Kalen had looked up and said, "I'm fine." But simultaneously, Julian had heard, asterisk, if he died, I would have burned this university to the ground. Asterisk. At first, Julian thought it was a hallucination, a side effect of a concussion. But the voices didn't stop. He realized quickly that range mattered. If he was within 50 feet of Kalen, the broadcast began. It was a one-way channel. Kalen broadcasted in 4K resolution, Julian received. And the content of the broadcast was shattering Julian's reality. For 2 years, they had been roommates. Kalen Volmont was cold, distant, and intimidatingly perfect. He barely spoke to Julian outside of necessary logistics about rent, which Kalen paid the majority of, claiming the apartment was a family asset, or chores. Julian assumed Kalen tolerated him at best, or looked down on him at worst. He was wrong. He was catastrophically wrong. Mr. Thorne. Julian snapped his head up. Professor Holloway was staring at him. The answer, if you please? Julian blinked. He hadn't heard the question. Panic seized his throat. The scholarship was fragile. One bad semester, and he was back to the foster system. Suddenly, a voice drifted into his mind, clear and velvety, cutting through his panic. Asterisk. The variable relies on the entropy of the closed system, Professor. Julian knows it. He's just bored by your pedagogy. Asterisk. Julian stiffened. He looked toward the door of the lecture hall. Kaylin was standing there, casually leaning against the frame, waiting for Julian's class to end. He wasn't even looking at the professor. He was looking at his phone. Julian parroted the thought. The variable relies on the entropy of the closed system. The professor nodded, satisfied. Correct. Pay attention, Mr. Thorne. As the bell rang and students flooded out, Julian walked toward Kaylin. The proximity made the mental voice louder. Asterisk, he looks pale. Did he eat breakfast? No, he spilled the coffee. I need to feed him. If I take him to that bistro he likes, he'll smile. I'd kill someone to see him smile right now. Asterisk. You didn't have to wait for me, Julian said, clutching his bag strap. Kaylin pushed off the doorframe, his expression impassive. I was in the area. We have a meeting with the dean regarding the lab accident repairs. Liar, Kaylin's mind hissed at himself. Asterisk, I walked across the entire campus because I couldn't stand being alone in the apartment without his scent. Asterisk. Right, Julian said, his heart hammering against his ribs. It was becoming a torture of the highest order. Every glance Kaylin threw him was stoic, but the commentary was a torrent of obsessed worship. It was a slow-motion car crash of desire. Let's go, Kaylin said, turning. Julian followed, watching the broad expanse of Kaylin's shoulders in his charcoal trench coat. He felt like he was walking into the lion's den, but for the first time, he realized the lion didn't want to eat him. He wanted to keep him. The dynamic shifted 3 days later, on a rainy Friday night. Julian was on the sofa, trying to read a textbook, but the words swam before his eyes. Kaylin was at the grand piano in the corner of the living room. He played beautifully, Rachmaninoff, heavy and complex. The music was loud, but the thoughts were louder. Asterisk, his neck is exposed. That shirt is too big for him. It hangs off his shoulder. I want to bite him there. Just a graze. Would he taste like rain? Would he push me away? Asterisk. The piano keys slammed down on a discordant chord. Kaylin stopped playing, his hands hovering over the keys. Is the music disturbing you? Kaylin asked, not turning around. No, Julian said softly. It's beautiful. Asterisk, beautiful. He called it beautiful. He thinks I'm talented. Does he know I learned this piece because I heard him humming it in the shower 6 months ago? Asterisk. Julian choked on his own spit. He sat up, staring at Kaylin's back. 6 months ago? This wasn't a sudden crush. This was... Kaylin, Julian started, his voice trembling. Why did you choose me as a roommate? There were hundreds of applicants for the spare room in this penthouse. Kaylin turned slowly on the piano bench. The shadows of the room cut across his sharp cheekbones. You had the highest GPA. I prefer quiet, studious company. Asterisk. I chose you because I saw you in the library freshman year, and I couldn't breathe. I chose you because I knew if I didn't have you near me, I would lose my mind. I rigged the selection process. I bribed the housing committee. I did it all for you. Asterisk. The confession hit Julian like a physical blow. The depth of the deception was terrifying, yet the raw vulnerability in Kaylin's mind was intoxicating. This man, who could buy countries, was terrified of rejection by a nobody scholarship student. Is that the only reason? Julian pressed, standing up. He felt a strange surge of courage. He held the cards now. He knew the secrets. Kaylin stood up, closing the distance between them. The air in the room grew heavy, charged with the static of the storm outside and the psychic storm inside. What other reason would there be, Julian? His voice was ice. His mind was fire. Asterisk, tell me to stop. Push me back. If you take one more step closer, I won't be able to hold back. I'll ruin everything. I'll confess. I'll beg. I'll fall on my knees. Asterisk. Julian took a step closer. He saw Kaylin's pupils dilate. He saw the slight twitch in the man's jaw as he clenched his teeth. Maybe you just wanted a friend, Julian whispered, testing the waters. Kaylin looked down at him, his expression unreadable. I don't need friends, Julian. I have employees and I have liabilities. Asterisk, I don't want a friend. I want a soulmate. I want a lover. I want you to look at me the way you look at the stars. Asterisk. The pain in that thought was so acute it brought tears to Julian's eyes. He realized then that Kaelan wasn't a monster. He was a man starving to death, while sitting at a banquet he was too afraid to touch. You're shaking, Kaelan observed, reaching out as if to steady him, but stopping inches from Julian's arm. Asterisk, touch him. Take him. Just once. Asterisk. Julian didn't retreat. Instead, he closed the gap. He reached out and took Kaelan's hand, the hand that had held the knife, the hand that played Rachmaninoff. He placed it against his own chest, right over his beating heart. I'm not scared, Julian lied. He was terrified, but he was also exhilarated. Kaelan froze. His mental voice went silent for the first time in days. A pure, white static of shock. Then, the explosion. Asterisk, he's touching me. He's letting me touch him. His heart is racing. Is it for me? God, please let it be for me. Asterisk. Your heart is fast, Kaelan murmured, his thumb brushing the fabric of Julian's shirt. It does that when I'm near you, Julian admitted. It was the truth. Kaelan's eyes darkened. The gray turned to slate. You should be careful saying things like that to me, Julian. I'm not as nice as you think I am. I know, Julian said. I know you're not nice. I know you're obsessive. I know you rigged the housing lottery. Kaelan ripped his hand away, stumbling back as if burned. The silence in the room was shattered. The mask cracked. How? I guess I'm just observant, Julian said, his heart in his throat. He couldn't reveal the mind reading. Not yet. It would break the trust Kaelan clearly didn't have in anyone. And you look at me, Kaelan, when you think I'm not looking. Kaelan leaned against the piano, his breathing ragged. The internal monologue was a chaotic swirl of panic and calculation. Asterisk, he knows. He knows I'm a monster. He's going to leave. I have to stop him. I have to lock the doors. No, I can't hurt him. I have to let him go. But I can't. Asterisk. I'm not leaving, Julian said firmly, answering the unspoken fear. Kaelan looked up, eyes wide. Why? Because, Julian stepped forward again, entering the predator's space willingly. I think I might be crazy too. It was a slow burn ignited by a sudden spark. Julian had always admired Kaelan from afar, the competence, the power, the hidden depths. But hearing the sheer intensity of Kaelan's desire had awakened something dormant in Julian. A need to be wanted that badly. To be the sole focus of someone's universe. Kaelan stared at him, searching for the lie. Asterisk, he's staying? He accepts it? Even the darkness? Asterisk. Prove it, Kaelan rasped. Julian didn't hesitate. He reached up, tangling his fingers in Kaelan's expensive silk tie, and pulled him down. The kiss was not gentle. It was a collision. Kaelan groaned, a sound torn from the depths of his chest, and his restraint snapped. His arms wrapped around Julian, lifting him off the floor, crushing him against the hard wall of his chest. The mental broadcast became a singular, blinding sensation of euphoria. Asterisk, finally. Asterisk. Kaelan carried him toward the bedroom, not breaking the kiss. Julian wrapped his legs around Kaelan's waist, drowning in the sensation of the man and the mind. The morning sun filtered through the heavy velvet curtains of Kaelan's bedroom. Julian woke up wrapped in limbs and silk sheets. Kaelan was asleep, his face younger, softer without the mask of indifference. For a moment, there was silence. Then, Kaelan stirred. Asterisk, I love him. I love him so much it hurts. If he tries to leave the bed, I'm pulling him back in. Asterisk. Julian smiled, closing his eyes and snuggling deeper into Kaelan's chest. I'm not going anywhere, Julian whispered into the skin of Kaelan's neck. Kaelan stiffened. His eyes snapped open. He hadn't spoken aloud. He pulled back, looking at Julian with sharp, calculating eyes. Julian realized his slip. He froze. The secret hung in the air between them, heavy and undeniable. Kaelan's mind whirred. Asterisk, he answered me. He answered a thought. The lab accident. The way he reacts before I speak. He hears me. Asterisk. The realization washed over Kaelan's face, morphing from confusion to shock, and then to a dark, dangerous amusement. A slow smirk spread across Kaelan's lips. The predator was back, but this time, He knew the prey was listening. So, Kalen purred, leaning close to Julian's ear. You can hear everything? Julian nodded, unable to speak. Everything. Kalen thought, deliberately projecting the image of what he wanted to do to Julian next. A montage of possessive, heated, decadent acts that made Julian's face burn scarlet. Yes, Julian squeaked. Kalen chuckled, a low, rumbling sound that vibrated through Julian's bones. He tightened his grip on Julian's waist. Good, Kalen whispered, his lips grazing Julian's jaw. Because I'm tired of holding back. Now you'll know exactly how much you belong to me, every second of every day. There are no secrets now, my love. You are inside my head, and I am never letting you out. Julian looked into those gray eyes and heard the promise of a lifetime of obsession. And for the first time in his life, he didn't feel alone. He felt found. Loud and clear, Julian whispered, and pulled Kalen back down into the darkness. And that is how the viper tamed the wolf, by letting himself be devoured. If you enjoyed seeing the tables turn and Julian embracing the madness, destroy that like button. And tell me in the comments, would you stay with a partner if you could hear their darkest, most obsessive thoughts about you? I'll be reading your answers. Subscribe for the next chapter. Until then, prompt image. Prompt, masterpiece, best quality, high-res, 1.2. Korean manhwa style, semi-realistic, digital art. 2 men, BL, Yaoi, man 1. Julian, messy brown hair, wearing oversized white shirt, looking up with flushed cheeks and submissive yet challenging expression, hands gripping man 2's lapels. Man 2. Kalen, sharp jawline, silver gray eyes, slicked back black hair, wearing undone dress shirt and loosened tie, looming over man 1, possessive hand on man 1's waist, intense predatory gaze. Background is a dimly lit luxury penthouse living room, rain against floor-to-ceiling windows, grand piano in background, moody blue and gold lighting, cinematic composition, sharp focus, emotional tension.